have this urge to just tell stories and be creating. For me, I daydream of making new podcast episodes with interesting guests and curating art shows around the world. I know that success is not guaranteed, but I also know that if I don't at least try and chase my dreams, I would live in regret for the rest of my life. Today's guest has to paint. He needs to make art to fully express himself, and he is going to do that no matter what gets in the way. I'm your host, Jacob Johnson. This is the Myartisreal podcast, episode 22, Jean-Luc, right after the break. This podcast would not be possible without you, the listener. If you enjoy the show, please consider sharing it with as many people as you know in order to help us grow and inspire more people. If you want to take your support a step further, we now have available on our website limited edition art prints made in collaboration with our previous guest and other artist friends. You can purchase them on Myartisreal.com. They are all made in studio by me. Don't forget to check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Myartisreal as well if you want to get even more content and support the show directly for only $3 a month. Thank you everyone for listening. Now back to the episode.
Yep, so my name's Jean-Luc Almond. I'm an artist from the Democratic Republic of Congo, initially, is where I was born, although I'm British. Both parents are British, and oil painter primarily.
And could you explain to me a little bit more about where you were born?
So I grew up in a little village called Nyankundi, which is in the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is Central Africa. So Nyankundi is like the east side of DRC. So yeah, I was born there. My parents were out there sort of as missionaries. So yeah, my very early childhood was there. In terms of memories of it, it's hard to know what is memories and what I've been told by my parents because I was so young. So it's kind of a bit hazy, a bit kind of fading. So I'm not quite sure what's real and what's not. But
he lived in Africa until he was about 3.5, and that's when his family moved back to the UK. They moved to a town just an hour north of London, which is a name I can't pronounce. So let's get Jean-Luc back, and he'll tell us real quick.
We came back to the UK, Bedfordshire, in the UK, which is about an hour from London.
Jean-Luc was a very shy kid growing up, much like myself, and I don't know if it was as bad as my shyness when I was growing up, but I remember when it was time for me to start kindergarten school, my mom took me to the school and they had me say my ABCs and count and all that basic stuff, right? Well, I just didn't speak at all, not a single word. Finally, my mom got me to talk and they realized that I wasn't dumb, but man, was I shy. Jean-Luc didn't have much interaction with other kids his age before moving back to the UK, so it took a bit of time for him to adjust to this new place and start making friends.
Early childhood, from when I first went to school, I think it was quite difficult because I hadn't really had any sort of structure, I guess, growing up in Africa. I wasn't used to kind of the social aspect of loads of kids around to play with, and I hadn't gone to nursery or anything like that. So I think I probably felt a little bit lost initially. I didn't feel like I fit in kind of at school, and I struggled in social situations and kind of making friends, and I always felt a little bit like the odd one out. I remember like my voice would always shake when I was asked to kind of read in class and stuff like that. So I was a very shy kid, didn't have much confidence, and to be honest, I think that I'm still quite an introverted person. I'm good around a kind of a few people, but I find big crowds quite overwhelming.
He was always interested in art and drawing at a young age. For him, drawing was his comfort zone.
I was always just so content drawing. My other mates would be playing with like toys and stuff like that, but I was just content just to kind of be there with a pad and pencil, and I could just draw for hours. And I felt kind of in my comfort zone there. I was not great academically, I'd say, but one thing I really felt comfortable with was my art. So, and I remember my parents saying to me, like, when we were in Africa, I used to just be kind of drawing with my finger in kind of mud and stuff like that. So I always had that kind of, I guess, visceral urge to kind of do things creative. Although the strange thing was that initially when I was drawing, I didn't really want to paint. I was kind of scared of getting my hands dirty in my when I first went to school, and it took me till I was kind of in my teens, I would say, to kind of start painting. Um, but I think I got kind of that foundation of learning to see things, and that structure in place kind of early on from a lot of drawing.
And art became a place where he could shut the world out when it became too scary.
Even during my lunch breaks at school, I was going into the art studio and just drawing. So I felt comforted by that. It allowed me a way to kind of lose myself in another world when I found this world quite scary. So there was a need to do it, that urge which we were talking about. But there was also that kind of escape to kind of another place where you feel kind of, it's unknown, obviously, because you never know what you're going to create, but there's something comforting about that.
Like most of us at the young age of 18, we struggle to know what our next step in life should be. With a lot of us creatives, we are pressured to look for a safer route than the arts, but that wasn't the case for Jean-Luc. Sure, he was nervous. I mean, you always hear about the life of a starving artist for a reason, but he had some support from his teachers and his parents.
I was really struggling to know what to do. To be honest, I was I only really liked creative subjects, so it was either going to be something kind of dance or drama or art related, but I just didn't know how I could go about it. But some of my teachers at school, they saw my gift for art, and they encouraged me to pursue it and go to art school. That really helped. That was encouraging. So one of my teachers during upper school recommended City and Guilds to me, and that's where I actually ended up going to college to study, and that was really good for me because it was a really sort of small, intimate college with good sort of staff to student ratios and a really supportive environment, and I think I needed that. Obviously, I needed to be pushed, but in the right way. So, yeah, and it was during kind of art school that I started getting my vision, I guess, of kind of how I wanted to take my art and my sort of voice and my language. And when I started becoming like really obsessed with paint, and it just became kind of much more clear that I wanted to be an artist.
He always knew that if he was going to make this whole art thing work, it was going to be a lot of hard work, and he used that as motivation to push further.
I felt like pressure, I guess, because colleagues of mine were going into more academic subjects, and maybe I didn't feel like an artist was like maybe like an acceptable career path. I don't know. Maybe they perhaps felt like, oh, can I actually make a career out of this? And some people would say, an artist, you can't really be an artist. You need a proper job, sort of thing. Art's sort of a hobby. So things like that, which is obviously quite an old-fashioned way of talking, whereas we know that you can. So I think that in a way made me nervous, but at the same time pushed me, I guess, to really work hard and to do the best that I could do and make it work.
Here's another thing about getting an art degree. Well, not just an art degree, but a lot of other degrees. Often they don't translate into a job doing what you want. Here's an example of what I mean. To be a nurse like my fiance, You go to nursing school, and once you graduate with your degree, boom, you apply for a job and you're working as a nurse. But if you get a master's in fine arts, there isn't some place you can just apply with your resume to get a job being an artist. So once Jean-Luc was finished with school, he had to pay the bills, so he got a job as a caregiver.
I was thinking maybe I do something part-time as well alongside my art, and that's what I ended up doing actually, because when I graduated, I was a bit lost. I was like, what do I do now? How do I actually make a living from this? So I was looking for part-time jobs, basically just anything that would help, pay the bills so I could do my art. So I ended up working pretty much full time as a carer, doing night shifts and then painting during the day. So I was absolutely shattered, but it just allowed me to pursue my passion. So um, I was working with people with learning disabilities in one place, and then also with people with dementia in another one. So it's a very challenging role, but it just, I don't know, it gave me an awareness of life at such a young age as well, kind of how fragile life is and how important it is, and to kind of make the most of it.
But working this job and trying to make a career as an artist on the side was a lot of hard work. Jean-Luc was exhausted.
I felt so really, really exhausted, really tired through because I was basically doing a 10-hour night shift, and then I would come back home and I wouldn't sleep most of the time, or I'd have 1 or 2 hours sleep, and then I would just do my art for the rest of the day. So it was just tiring initially for those first sort of 5-6 years after art college, where I was trying to balance like trying to be an artist. And I was lucky in that I had really encouraging kind of parents, and my girlfriend, who's now my wife, was just really supportive and kind of encouraging me to kind of, they could obviously see that this was something that I was good at.
Did you have to force yourself sometimes to paint and work, or was it just like if you didn't do this, you just felt like off? You had to be painting.
It was that urge. I just had to do it. There was something inside of me that just needed to come out. I've always struggled to articulate things in words, but I found a way of sort of articulating things better with my art and with paint. So that became my language in a way, and my means of expressing myself. So yeah, I just had to do it.
Jean-Luc has a unique style of painting. His figures are often dark and more out of focus with an abstract style to them. His works didn't start that way. It was a slow progression of removing elements like the eyes and adding in thick, textured layers of paint over the portraits. I love it when you see artists like Jean-Luc where they start out with more detail in their works and they slowly turn more abstract, not as a way to cover up any lack of skill, but as a way to enhance the work and to bring it into a new level that just couldn't be reached for them by staying with that more detailed style.
I started to experiment with sort of portraiture, and I was doing a lot of these kind of multiple head series where I was just kind of painting all these different heads on one canvas and kind of abstracting them to different degrees and bringing out certain features or hiding others. And I just became really intrigued by kind of the face, but then the face was like a vehicle to express kind of emotion. So it wasn't necessarily like, oh, I needed to paint the features or make it look like this person from the subject matter. It was more like, how can I bring out something deeper through maybe what's not seen, but through the features. So it wasn't so much about the representation anymore. It was kind of more about kind of the abstraction, bringing out more emotion. I loved painting eyes, and I was really good at painting eyes, but I started just taking them out because it did this kind of this raw kind of feeling to the work when I would do it, and it was like it's taking away kind of individuality of that person that maybe I was painting, but at the same time it was becoming more of a general kind of feeling, something which felt more how we feel in life.
The emotion that you put into this work, is it all of your emotions, or is it coming from some of the subjects you're using in your work?
I think it's probably more my own, because I feel quite deeply when I'm painting, but then I feel like if people can relate to my work at an exhibition and they can say, "Oh, that makes me feel this," it maybe it's because that there is this thing in life, that it's much more deeply layered than what we just see on the outside. There's so many ranges of emotions that we feel, with happiness, but sadness. There's so much darkness in life as well as beauty. So I think for me, this interest in kind of these polarities of kind of beauty and brokenness, creation, destruction, darkness, light, kind of all feed into the work, and they're things that we all feel. And so I feel it when I'm painting, but I think some people it's too disturbing for them, but other people they can really relate to it based on our own experiences, I guess. And some people want to confront that. For me, kind of darkness comes out probably as my way of confronting it because I'm aware of what's around me and it's my way of dealing with it. But to other people, they don't want to confront it. They just want the beauty aspect. But for me, they have to exist together. Can't have one without the other. So for it to be more real and more like life itself.
For Jean-Luc, the abstractions actually make the work more real than if you would have painted a normal portrait.
It may seem strange, like to make something more real to completely abstract it, but it's someone can smile, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're happy. And so it's just trying to excavate deeper into our being. And that's mirrored by my use of texture, I think, and paint and the visceral surface of kind of just pulling out things, kind of sometimes not even quite sure how it's going to turn out and what the paint's going to do, but letting the paint take on its own form, which brings out just something emotive which I didn't think was possible.
Jean-Luc's emotional state of mind is directly connected to his art, and when the art is going great, he feels great. But when he's having a creative block, it can really drag him down. His emotions with his art began to grow, and it started to seep into his work life and made his day job a lot more difficult.
Yeah, I would just get obsessive as well. It became an obsession that was just, even when I was doing my caring, I was just thinking about my art and just what I was going to do next, and just had all these thoughts kind of popping around in my head. And in a way, that became unhealthy towards the end because I focused on my caring in one place, but then my art in another, and I needed to kind of prioritize one. And obviously, I always wanted to become an artist, so in the end, that was a natural time to do it. It's when I felt like I couldn't, I wasn't able to care the best that I could anymore. Yeah, which was, the uncertainty of it. Being an artist, it's being self-employed. It's, you never quite know when the next, paycheck's coming in. So it was a risk, but yeah, I just felt like I needed to to take that risk.
It was at this time that he realized he needed to move on, and COVID also hit at the same time, which made it the perfect opportunity for him to try to pursue his dream and make it a full-time job, which was actually what a lot of people did during this time. Being an entrepreneur is no joke. I mean, I've been trying to do it for years now with Myartisreal, and it's still a pain sometimes. Not only do you have to do a lot of work, but often you can't predict your income. It could be a lot one day and nothing the very next. So it's a constant uphill battle trying to make things work.
Just have to learn to, I guess, just constantly work hard, because you just never know. I do find that if you keep working hard and you just keep integrity in your work, and just it's difficult because you can feel down if you've not had a good month with sales or whatever. But it's kind of like you never know in a few months' time, like that one piece that you created when you were down and when things weren't going well, that's just sold. A few months down the line, and had you not picked up the courage to to do that, you wouldn't have made that sale in the end. So it's kind of like, yeah, setting yourself targets just to, pick up a brush each day, even if you're finding it really hard to paint and just struggling to find motivation, setting yourself like small stepping stones sometimes. Just, today it's gonna be an achievement for me just to kind of pick up a brush today and just try and create something, whether it's good or bad. But yeah, just you've got to do it, because through creating, it brings more ideas and it brings more motivation. I think the hardest thing is when you stop it, and if you go through kind of a depressive phase, which I've been through, where I struggled to paint for a few months, and it's so much harder to start it again.
Even with the stress and responsibilities of managing his art career, he knew he couldn't give up. After all, it is his life's dream to share his art with the world, and if he was gonna just give up and stop trying, that would be worse than trying and failing. When you have such a strong passion for something, it's important to chase it when you can and not let it pass you by, as life is always moving forward and you can never get that time back.
I was just like, I have no idea. We cannot predict if something's going to go well or not, can we? It's not in our hands, but at least give it a go. At least just know that you've done the best you can and put in everything. The biggest regret would be that I didn't try to make it happen. If I look back in, many years' time, and I think, well, you didn't try hard enough. You never gave yourself a shot at it. So definitely, I think there's that reminding yourself all the time as well for motivation when you're painting. It's like, imagine if you don't put in the effort now, you will regret it later on. So use that as fuel.
And while the world seems to celebrate all things fake from social media and celebrities, in the end, what really wins is being authentic and being true to yourself and what you believe in.
Yeah, integrity is so important. Just creating the work that you want to create. I've always been like that. It's not, at the end of the day, it may not sell, but if I create something that I'm really pleased with, and I've really needed to create, then that's the most important thing. I know it's hard to balance that with making a living, but I do find, though, I think when you stay true to yourself, people do feel it. So at exhibitions, like some works that I was really concerned about that I put, and I was thinking, oh, will people actually like this? Is it too dark, too abstract? Is it, have I pushed this texture too far? That is just, are people just going to find it hideous? And then one person will come along and be like, I absolutely love that, and then may buy it, and then you're just like, wow, that's given me so much encouragement to just stay true to myself.
Thanks for listening, but don't leave just yet. I need your help. It's time to be honest and real. This podcast takes so much work, and I'm all alone and working on it, and the countless other tasks like writing blog articles and posting for artists and doing these online shows and trying to curate physical shows. It's a lot. I'm trying to tell as many artist stories as I can and help artists in any way I can, and I could really use some help myself. I'm working on uploading the very first bonus episode to Patreon this week. So if you want to head on over to Patreon and sign up for only $3 a month, it would really help me out. I'm going to be putting up full bonus episodes every month and a bunch of other content for you guys there. So please check it out. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Myartisreal podcast, and I'll see you in the next one.